Here's an explanation for one of the official questions you can now study with in the Magoosh GRE program. All right, first thing we're going to notice about this question is that this is a multiple answer question. Now, just like on test day, we see this indicated in several places, all, one or more, all again, and we see that these bubbles look a little bit different than they do on regular multiple choice questions. So even though this is indicated in a bunch of places, it's actually really easy to miss or forget if we're on autopilot with solving these questions. So we're gonna make a really strong mental note right now that this is a multiple answer question and that we need to check all of the answer choices as a result. Moving on, now that we've saved ourselves from that trap, we're gonna go ahead and break down this question stem. Now, there are several pieces in this question stem, so we're gonna kind of break it into chunks and process it as we go. So, starting with the first sentence, the volume of the interior of a rectangular storage bin is 240 cubic meters. Okay, so we are dealing with a rectangular prism here. Now, I'm gonna draw one just so I remember what I'm working with. Does not need to be pretty. Mine certainly isn't. And that's just gonna help me visualize this problem. Okay, so we are working with the volume of this thing. So volume of a rectangular prism is length times width times height, where maybe that's the length, that's the width, and that's the height. Great. Okay, now they tell us that that volume is 240. So filling that in the equation, we've got 240 equals length times width times height. Not much else we can do with this at this point, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the second sentence. All right, moving on to the second sentence. If the perimeter of the interior base of the bin is 40 meters, I see a comma here. I'm gonna go ahead and stop because we've got another complete piece of information that I can process. Okay, we're working with the base of the bin, so that's gonna be that bottom face or that bottom rectangle on this rectangular prism. All right, and so we are working with the equation for the perimeter of that base. Now I want to pause here. A really easy misinterpretation to make here is thinking this is talking about the area, right? So we go, okay, area equals length times width. We go, okay, so then area is 40. And hey, that fits so nicely into our previous equation. And it's a really nice misinterpretation to make because it makes the problem a lot easier, but it's incorrect. And there is a wrong answer built specifically around this misinterpretation. Don't make it. So being really careful to interpret one piece at a time and write down the equations as we go is going to help us avoid this. So equation for perimeter is not length times width. It is 2 length plus 2 width. All right, now that we have the right equation, we can fill in that perimeter is 40. And then we can actually work with this equation a little bit to make it a little simpler. So I'm gonna go ahead and factor out the 2 on the right-hand side to get 40 equals 2 times length plus width. And then I'm gonna divide both sides by 2 to give me 20 equals length plus width. Little bit simpler. So we've got another equation to work with. So moving on, which of the following could be the dimensions of the interior of the bin in meters? So we are looking for the dimensions of that entire rectangular prism, so that length, that width, and that height, and we can see that reflected in the answer choices. Now, I want to note here that they don't tell us that the first one is length, the second one is width, the third one is height. They could be in any order, but those 3, in some order, are the length, the width, and the height. Okay, making a note of that, let's go ahead and start solving. Now, looking at what we have 2 equations with 3 variables between them. Okay, so this is not super promising for being able to solve these 2 equations to get 1 value for each variable. Maybe if we had 3 equations, but we only have 2. So at this point, I'm going, okay, this makes sense. This is a multiple answer question. It's likely that there are going to be multiple values for each variable. But this indicates to me that going ahead and solving this by algebra as a system of equations is probably not going to be super fruitful. So instead of going that route, I'm going to jump straight to my answer choices. So if an answer is correct, both of these equations should be true for that answer. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and evaluate each of these answer choices using my easier equation. And that's mostly because I'm hoping that I'll get lucky and be able to eliminate 3 answer choices and be able to pick my answer without even dealing with the other slightly more difficult equation. All right, so going ahead and evaluating these answer choices. Let's start with the first one, 6 by 8 by 5. Now, again, I don't know which of these numbers is length, which of these numbers is width, which of these numbers is height, but that's actually not a problem because looking at these numbers, they are too small. No two of them are going to add up to 20. The two biggest, 6 and 8, add up to 14. So without even touching the other equation, I know that this first answer is not going to work because it does not hold true with this second equation. All right, moving on, I don't get so lucky with the other answer choices. 8 and 12 add up to 20, so that one's on the table. 9 and 11 add up to 20, so that one's on the table. And 10 and 10 add up to 20, so that one's on the table. Unfortunate. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and move on to my slightly more complicated equation, working with my remaining 3 answer choices. So I'm going to start with an easier answer choice for evaluating with this equation just to get a win. And I'm immediately drawn to the last answer choice, or answer choice D, because it's got 10s in it. And then I noticed something else pretty cool. 2.4. Wow, that looks suspiciously like 240. That's nice. So 10 times 10 is 100. 100 times 2.4. Wow. Didn't have to bust out a calculator for that one. That's 240. So I know that that answer choice works because it makes both of these equations true. All right, so one answer choice, but I'm not done. I'm going to go ahead and move on to another. And I noticed that C also has a 2.4. Ooh, now I know that in my last answer choice, I needed 100 times 2.4 to make 240, and 9 times 11 is not 100. Not my answer. Now, if that logic did not occur to you, no shame in busting out the calculator if that's going to be faster. And in this case, it's not super slow. So cool if you use the calculator, but you can get away from it. All right, looking at B. Okay, this one's a little nastier. 8 by 12 by 2.5. This is a 2.5, not a 2.4. Now, again, you can get out a calculator if that's going to be faster. However, there are a couple of relatively easy ways to do this in your head. So rather than doing 8 times 12 times 2.5, we can do 2.5 times either 12 or 8. If we do 2.5 times 8, we end up with 20 times 12, which is relatively easy mental math to get to 240. That one also makes both of these equations true. So the correct answers for this question were B and D. All right, couple of takeaways. When you see a multiple answer question like this one, make sure that you are noting that before you start solving. It would have been very easy here to move on after picking one answer and then miss the question, given that there were 2. All right. Also, when you see a complicated question stem like this one, make sure that you are taking your time and processing as you go. If we weren't writing down these equations and thinking about them, it would have been really easy to make a mistake that would have caused us to miss the problem. So take your time with interpretation. Misinterpretations are built into the problems. Remember that there are multiple options to solve. We do not have to default to algebra. Sometimes, and especially with multiple answer questions like this, it is going to be more effective to work through the answer choices than to work to the answer choices. Finally, remember that calculators are an option, but they are optional. So you want to make sure that you are doing what is going to be fastest for you. For me, it was faster to recognize patterns in these answer choices and how they related to the question stem, as well as to think about quicker mental math options. However, if those things are not occurring to you, don't be afraid to get out the calculator. Whatever gets you to the answer faster and more accurately is going to be the best option.